I wanted to make the movie before I knew what it was. I just knew that it was called Creed, and I knew it was Ryan Coogler's next movie, and so I really wanted to make it. When I found out that there was something in it for me, and that it was to play a musician, I've sort of dabbled in music. I sang in a band for a couple of years, my dad's a musician, but it's always been a dream of mine to play a musician in a movie, so that was something that was exciting to me. And then to enter this iconic, sort of film institution, if you will, but to enter it in such a fresh way, a standalone way. I mean, I think if you, reading this script, you wouldn't have to be familiar with the Rocky movies at all to be invested in the universe, and then to know that beyond that, there's, this body of work that you can watch if you're still interested in the world that this movie takes place in. So I sort of loved all those elements of it, and getting to work with Michael B. Jordan, I just think he's so uniquely talented. So it just felt like a project that I would have been very upset if I didn't get to do. Goodness. Well, she is, some people would say, a Philly John, which means a real Philly girl. She's sort of born and bred in Philadelphia. She is someone that is in the pursuit of having some measure of success in the music industry. She is really passionate about these batch of songs, but they're kind of experimental. So I think she's sort of elusive. She's hard to pin down. Because of the work that she does, she's sort of holed up in her house, so she's not really the most extroverted or available person when she first meets Adonis. And for that reason, I think I would say she's a tough nut to crack. But once you do sort of get to her center, you realize that it's really quite soft and quite vulnerable, and I thought that was something that was really special about her. I also really fell in love with Philadelphia when I was coming here to do research, and so I really stole from a lot of the women that I met here. There's a lot of them on screen. Yeah, well, there was the dialect, which was really, the trickiest thing at first, figuring out how she spoke, because it needed to sound like Philadelphia, but depending on where you are in Philly, it's really different. There's not like sort of a standard wash of Philly that you do, depending on the person's experiences, and that's true of all of us, in the way that we speak changes the way that we speak. So we really wanted her to really be specific, and be something that audiences could watch and believe in. So I spent a lot of time hanging out in the city. I went to beauty salons. I would take out my voice memo on my phone all the time, and I would record people secretly. And I would listen to all of that, and I would pick here. And then there are also reference points, like someone like Jill Scott, for example, who's a Philly-based artist, so she was a perfect person for me to look at. And by the way, also would have been someone that Bianca would look to, because whenever someone makes it sort of out of your hometown and gets acclaim, that's someone that you look up to. So there were so many reference points for me. I think they see that in each other. I think they find that, that really alluring and really exciting. And also, at some point, I think they find, that that's a tricky thing to navigate, because it means that they each respectively are dealing with falling in love with someone that is in love with something maybe a little more than them sometimes, Adonis wants it so badly. He wants success so badly, and wants to prove that he is his father's son. And for Bianca, I think she wants to prove that her voice can be heard, and that she's sort of enough. And so I think they help quiet that in each other, actually, and help each other hopefully realize that while those things are really important, connection is also really important, and the people around you are also really important. Well, he brought an incredible, truthfully, I fell so in love with his work ethic, and just the spirit that he brought to wanting to really capture, the heart of a fighter. And so in that way, it was really easy to be able to fall in love with him on screen, because I just felt like, goodness, he was just working so hard, and almost for the space of a year. And then also watching his collaboration with Ryan Coogler. Of course, they worked together on Fruitvale Station. They have such an incredible, they're such brothers. They really root for each other. They're really like ringside. They're each other's biggest champions, and also they keep each other honest in the way the family does. So that was really special to watch them together. Yeah. Oh, that was so cool. Ryan called me on a Friday to ask me if I wanted to make the movie, and he said, you should start working on the music soon with Ludwig. And I was like, when? And he was like, tomorrow. And I started the very next day, and we worked together, for weeks, every day straight from morning till night. And he's just such a talented, just a genius. Can play anything, can work in whatever which way. Sometimes we would build a track, ground up, sitting at his computer, and sometimes we would start at a grand piano, and we would start a song that way. And he and Ryan have been really good friends since they were in college. They met when Ludwig was living in a tiny little, literally living in the closet of a fraternity house that had been on suspension. And they met, Ryan was playing pool, and they became fast friends and are longtime collaborators now. So it was just really special. I felt like I was being invited into a family. He's kind of exactly what he's like as a person, which is someone that's really open, really available, really present. He likes to cute things about him. One thing, for example, is he likes to hide. He likes to be as close to the scene as possible, so he can be inside of it, and instead of always watching on a monitor with everybody else, he'd have his own little monitor in case he needed to reference things, but he'd like to watch live to see what's happening. Or if he couldn't watch because he'd be in the way, he likes to listen. So if we were shooting the scene now, he might like literally pop up from right. He might be sat here the whole time, just crouched, listening, and then he would pop up to give you notes. Or when they were shooting the boxing scenes, one day they were in a boxing scene, and suddenly he literally pops up from under the boxing ring, and he's been there the whole time directing from under there. So he's someone that's like, there could not be a more hands-on director if you tried. Incredible, because so he really, there's a danger if you say that you're in the presence of a legend and you sense that, because there's this idea sometimes that a legend is like this fully formed thing all the time that walks around like knowing how legendary it is. And he's not that at all. He's incredibly humble and like open and just fun. Like legends don't really sound that fun. Like you don't really want to like have a beer with a legend. Well, maybe you do. It depends on the legend, but you know what I mean. There's something like stoic about that term, and he's anything but that. But he's just an incredible wealth of film history and such a champion of young and up and coming artists, which is so cool for someone that's as established as he is. He doesn't have to be that way, and he just is, because he remembers so palpably when he was there. He talks about having mastered the art of poverty back in the day when he was trying to get Rocky made, and truthfully, he doesn't feel like he's changed all that much since then. I don't know. I think we had so much fun making it. Honestly, we just had so much fun making the movie it would be crazy if it didn't get communicated on screen. We were just so happy. This was really a movie that came. It was the brainchild of Ryan. He wrote this movie because it meant so much to him, and then he was able, over time to convince Sly to get on board, and then Sly convinced the studio to make it. So it really, I think we were all just so happy that we were getting to tell this story.